And welcome everybody to another glorious episode of the Put On Waivers Podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas. I am podcasting out the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. I mean, it's like absolutely perfect. My kind of day. You walk around, you feel the heat. It's a beautiful day out there in SoCo. My partner is James Amato. He's podcasting on the beautiful shores of the Atlantic Ocean. I know you got a little heat wave in there. It feels like do the right thing heat out there right now in CT, James.
It's been hot for the last 5 days. We just had a huge line of thunderstorms come through. So hopefully knocks some of the humidity out of the way, but I doubt it.
I doubt it.
We'll see what happens. I think it's another few more days of humidity and then get some of that summer beach weather in to get real comfortable.
Yeah. The water is definitely cold enough to jump in. I mean, it's when it's that hot outside. Talk about NBA real quick. I would say this to the Suns. Congratulations. You beat the Lakers. Good job. I would just say one thing is we remember the shot that Kawhi Leonard hit against the Sixers, the one that bounced around all in and finally went in. They ended up winning that game. I think one of the reasons why we remember that game is because the Raptors won the championship. So it's wide open. There's no mega team out there. You got one of the best scorers in the league, and Devin Booker, or Book, as he likes to be called. Go out there and win it. I mean, like I just watched a documentary on Steve Nash's career and how close he came to winning championships and how he never won it, even though some of his teammates like Jason Kidd and Dirk Nowitzki went on to win championships. Go out there and win it. Hang a banner out there.
Don't waste that opportunity.
Yeah, don't waste it. Don't waste it because
they don't pop up a lot.
And then James, how many times have we seen the bright young team in the NBA do something like this and then they never end up winning the championship, right? So
they never get out of the second round.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So,
we've seen it often, or they implode over jealousies, especially when contracts are involved and Tony Braxton is involved.
So. Oh, team out. I was just gonna say Tony Braxton. I was just gonna say Tony Braxton. You never know. So you never know. Tony might come into the locker room and start singing R&B. 858-429-9465 is the text line number. We got a bunch of questions off of that, so we'll definitely get to those. Thanks for people listening in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Brooklyn, New York, Butte, Montana, San Francisco, California, and St. Louis, Missouri. Good looking there. And real quick before we hit MLB, anything takeaways from the NBA playoffs so far? The Clippers. I think the Clippers.
Winning Game 7 actually surprised me. I the road team won every game up to that point, correct?
Yes, exactly.
So that was odd on that. I think Luka is going to be a force to reckon with in this league for a while. You definitely got to build around him. I think it's the end of Kristaps in Dallas, but apparently no one's asking about him. And then obviously we have to see what's going to happen with Dame up in Portland. That has been a messy 72 hours after the playoffs ended for them.
Yeah. Losing to the Nuggets without Jamal Murray is not a good look.
Yes.
Which is not a good look.
Not at all. And then, saying he wants Jason Kidd to be his coach, and Jason Kidd being like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm going to pull my name out on this one. So we'll see what happens there. I'm rooting for the Bucks. I had to throw on my Bucks beach hat.
I think it's over.
A little. I don't want it to be. I really want them to come back, but last night just shocked the hell out of me. Like I got home from work and sat back, grabbed a beer, put the TV on, and they were down by 24 in the first quarter.
They're going to be the first. The Nets, if they win it, they'll be the first champion to really completely ignore defense and win the championship. But yes. They're watching them closely now, more so than I watched them all year. Their role players are much better than I thought they were. They really get Joe. And I didn't realize how tall Joe Harris was. This guy is like 6'10".
Yeah. Oh yeah, Joe Harris.
Yeah, that dude is and I did like in game one I mean, even though I can't stand the Nets, but I do give Blake Griffin a lot of credit. He was diving on the floor, blocking shots, like cutting to the basket. So he really kind of wants this championship too. So
Yeah, Blake
and then
Griffin looks like he lost 5 years from his
yes,
age.
yeah, seriously.
He had a couple slams last night too that were some throwbacks. So
hit back-to-back
good for him.
threes in game one. Back-to-back threes in game one. That kind of really
Yeah,
settled things
and
down for him.
good for him. He's been around the league for a while. This is not. I mean, his skills have diminished. He's not the player he was, but this is not someone hanging on to win a championship. I think he has at least 3 or 4 more years in the league. And if he sticks around like in this role, I think it's perfect for him.
Yeah, I mean, this is where he wanted to go, so good for him. And we'll see what happens there. I just feel like we're headed towards Nets Clippers. So we'll see what happens there. Conley's out for game one. So that's a really tough blow. They need Conley and Donovan Mitchell to beat them together. It's gonna be hard to beat the Clippers like that. I don't know how you feel about that.
You could call it the little brothers final. The Nets are the little brothers to the Knicks for all those years, and the Clippers are the little brothers to the Lakers for all these years. So we'll see what happens there.
NHL playoffs. What are you seeing there?
Montreal is starting to scare me. I mean, they've now won 7 games in a row.
Yeah.
You have a young team, a lot of exciting young players, and again, they're playing in that Canadian division because of everything. I think the Islanders and Tampa Bay are lining up to play each other. I think the Golden Knights are going to advance and play Montreal. But again, Montreal with these young players rallying around Carey Price it has been pretty incredible. So, the overtime win last night to advance, see who they play next. They'll have a few days off to rest. Again, you have an older goalie like Price. He needs that time off. He can't get into those long series. To have that 7-game series with Toronto and then get a 4-game series, you're now at 11 games in the postseason, which is not bad. That's kind of you kind of expect to play five games each round. So take your week off, go from there, and that's the one thing that when they always talk about Carey Price for some reason as a Hall of Famer, they keep throwing out there he doesn't have a cup. So it wouldn't be too bad to see Montreal win it. If the Islanders beat the Bruins, I think that in Tampa Bay, I think whoever plays Tampa Bay in the Eastern Conference Finals is going to be a good series.
Yeah, should be fun. Playoff hockey is always cool. Let's roll over to the bread and butter here, MLB, and I sent an article that Bleacher Report had out. It had the top 5 MLB considerations of what they should do next year for 2022. So just kind of thoughts. I think the first thing that came up, which is going to be on everybody's mind, is the universal DH. Is the universal DH something that I think that's gonna? I'm not sure why they held it out of this year, but maybe that's a negotiating ploy. But if guys have a little bit left and they can play like they can pull a Nelson Cruz and give you huge years just hitting the baseball, why not? Like, why absolutely not?
Which we discussed, many times. The original H's back in the day were guys, he wanted to get 2 or 3 more years out of them.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like you didn't come up from the minor leagues at DH only, and it wasn't really young players.
Yeah,
even Edgar Martinez played the field for a while before he came full-time DH over there. So
I mean, if we can keep Posey, at some point he's not going to catch anymore. If he can still hit, he's having a great year this year. Why not?
Well, the DH creates jobs, and that's what it comes down to, and that's why the union's always been pro for it. But then, you have someone like Jacob deGrom, and I'm not going to include Ohtani because I think he's just the exception to the rule. But deGrom's batting 450 this year, so it's always a surprise when a pitcher hits like that. Mm-hmm. And that should be a fair, not that deGrom doesn't have enough advantage, but when he's pitching, that you have that bat. That's an extra advantage a team should be allowed to have.
Yeah, no question about it. I think the next in the line of thinking was larger bases. I am not opposed to this. I've always said at least at first base, I wouldn't mind the double base like softball. I just don't. I just have a clear
You
separation between. I mean, you could still. I mean, I think even on replays, it will give you even a clearer view of who's out and who's on, who's safe.
yes.
I like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be a different color. I mean, I know in softball is orange. The other bag is orange, and on the base that's in play is white. But what are your feelings about like maybe a little bit of a larger base?
Yeah, I think the double bag is good at first base. I could see
Yes.
going a little bit bigger with the bags around the bases. But then what do you do with home plate? I mean, it's not like umpires can call balls and strikes as it is, but
We'll get into that. We'll get into it. We'll get into that.
So
I mean, my lord. Yeah.
that'll be interesting.
Well, you know what? I mean, the way they're calling balls and strikes, and we'll talk about the Red Sox and Yankee game, the Sunday night baseball game. That's the reason why they won't be calling balls and strikes soon. the way they called that as well. Pickoffs and pickoff attempts being limited. I don't know how I feel about that, because if you know the pitcher is not,
If you're not throwing to get too big of a lead,
if he throws, if you know he's not throwing over, you can get a huge lead because he can't throw over. So like,
no, we can't take all strategy out of the game.
No.
And I think when you think about it, like I've said it for years now, is you would love to see baseball go to like a kind of like soccer, where they have the running ads going at all time. I mean, this way you can cut down. It's the advertising between innings.
That's
the commercial
the
breaks.
Yeah.
That's the money maker, and that's what's extended the games more than anything. Yeah, I mean, also, when you start adding franchises, your talent pool gets lesser and lesser. So there's probably 60 to 75 guys in Major League Baseball right now who probably shouldn't be in Major League Baseball, and what impact they have.
Mm-hmm.
It's become too specialized with the pitching, and where and I know they're addressing that with the minimum batters they have to face when they make the change. But again, it's become so specialized down to you're building more pitchers. So maybe a thought should be to expand the rosters.
Yeah.
So you have even offensive players and pitchers.
I'm not sure if the likes of Oakland and Pittsburgh and some of those teams like that who quote unquote have no money.
Yeah, they're carrying 14 pitchers and 12 position players, and 8 of those position players, you have 4 guys on the bench. Yeah. So they have to do something, but I think a lot of it has to be talking about the commercial breaks and getting that down more than anything.
I'm gonna go ahead.
Even more advertising on the uniforms. I'm not opposed to it. I think it's too big of a deal that people are making out of it. You watch soccer and they do a really good job with it. I thought
you forget about it in the NBA. You forget about it now.
In the NBA, yeah, you forget about it in the NBA, and I think the NBA did a really nice job with that too. Like they didn't overbear it, and that's how they make all the money, over in Europe in soccer and all sports. So get some of the basketball uniforms over there.
Yes. I mean, I would say you get it's definitely a lot of ways Major League Baseball can maximize that dollar and get. I think advertising on the jerseys is not an issue. I'm going to save one of these topics for our topic later on, but one of the last ones was a pitch clock. Like, do you feel like, hey, what are they implementing? Maybe a ball if they are taking too much time on the mound. I think if you're going to do a pitch clock, let's get the batters in the box. Like some of these batters do take a very long time.
It's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street. Yeah, you got to do both if you're going to do it.
Yeah. You can't penalize one for the other.
Yeah.
And the pitchers tend to get more pissed off and on edge when the batters don't get into the box more than the other way around. I think I've seen it occasionally where a batter will say something to the pitcher for taking their time, but that's all the intimidation game. That's all the mind games that are going on and everything. So right now I'm not a fan of the pitch clock.
No, I would say I'm pretty much. If you're gonna do it on both sides, I'm all for it. But if you're not gonna do it on both sides, forget about it. So James, on the screen, I have shared a screenshot of the Red Sox Yankee game. Odor is at the plate, and if you can see where that pitch is, the little circle outside, um, I'm not sure how that could be called a strike. And I think
Well,
that's
I mean, that's the umpire wanting to get home. I mean, that's the Levon Hernandez 1997
yes, yes,
strike zone
yes,
right
yes, yes,
there. Where
yes.
everything that was close to the plate was called a strike.
Yeah,
I mean, it was horrible calls that night in that game, and of course, it has to happen on a nationally televised game,
of
um,
course.
where and two, that's going to draw ratings, so everyone saw it.
It's pretty bad. I mean, and it's the reason why. And one of the changes that they talked about in that article on Bleacher Report was the automatic strike zone, and I think it's already been implemented at different levels of baseball, and it's coming. Like it's coming. I mean, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, that I would seem like that would give a hitter a lot of advantage. They wouldn't have to expand the strike zone, I guess, because they kind of would know what the uniform size strike zone would be. But I don't see the human element. I mean, when the human element is if the Yankees turn it around by some way, and they miss the playoffs by a game or two because of plays like umpires like games like that. I mean, you're going to hear about it. It's all fun and games until it happens to the Yankees, James.
Well, no, exactly.
You know how that happens.
Especially when it happens to the Yankees versus the Red Sox.
Yes,
you're
yes.
you're you're never going to hear the end of it. Um, yeah, I mean, umpiring. I mentioned Levon Hernandez strike zone. You go back to '85 with Don Denkinger, probably more than likely costing the Cardinals a World Series title, or definitely costing them a World Series title. It's just it's been on for years, but the strike zone just seems to be one of those things. And it's not like the glory days of Smoltz and Maddox where they were given that. They've been given the extra inch off the plate because they carved it up all night long, late in the game. We're just not we're not seeing it anymore. And honestly, the way batters swing nowadays, like pitchers don't need that advantage.
They don't. They're swinging. They're swinging at swinging at the fences. So talking about pitchers' advantages now. So this has been a big thing now, where there's not steroid gate. There's no anything like that. But what's happening now is pitchers are using glue to increase their spin rate, which is causing a little bit of a brouhaha, if you will, in Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball has taken a bunch of baseballs for examination. You got outfielders saying they're fielding balls that are completely just like they can barely even throw it in. It's so glued up. As long as baseball's around, there's always somebody looking for an advantage. It's always somebody trying to stretch the rules or cheat or whatever. Trevor Bauer kind of went back and forth on Twitter, giving people the kind of the MO of how it's being done. So and how it's being done, and nobody seems to like it. But I think teams and players are getting back and forth about how to deal with this. Do you feel like this is going to be a big thing when they start negotiating?
Well, it's going to be huge tomorrow because about 15 minutes before we started recording, Garrett Cole met with the press in regards to the tweets from I forget who the player tweeted about him, and one of the questions was, "Have you ever used something called spider junk?" It was spider something. I'm not sure if it was spider junk, and he hemmed and hawed for about 8 seconds, and then he replied, I don't know how to answer that question.
He said what? He put a
I don't
Clemens.
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. Was his exact quote. So that I mean, by the time we're done, that's going to be all over the place. That interview.
So James, if somebody asks you if you smoked crack, you could say no, Or you could say yes.
Or you could say yes.
You could
There's
say
no
yes.
maybe.
There is no
There's
maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know how to answer that question.
I don't know how to answer that question. So, I mean, that is incredible. So that means, that is 100% guilty as charged.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And then he went into a whole spiel about, well, stuff is passed down from players of the past generation to the next generation. And yeah.
The eye roll. I could feel it. The eye roll emoji is coming through here now. So, I mean, it's like, listen, it's really, and now, I guess what we talked about, how pitchers have gone from other teams and went to Houston, and their spin rate was, increased a whole lot. And now it's getting around baseball, and it's just like, probably the influx of glue being sent to major league ballparks are probably one of the things.
Yeah. And now you have that other report that in his last 3 starts, Garrett Cole's spin rotation has decreased each game. And I think he's 1 and 2 in his last 3 starts.
Cheating controversy. And I tell you, and the guy who's really, and this is it's tough because you have players who are hitters who are stand-up guys. And one of our favorite players, Josh Donaldson, is one of the guys who is just,
that's who it was. Yeah.
He is out for blood in this situation. Like he is pissed and he wants this to stop. And I think a lot of hitters want this to stop too. So, they're going to have to find another way. These pitchers are going to have to find another way to do it, to perform, because you can't. This is a good, if you're the owners, this is a good way of kind of splitting up the union a little bit. You know what I'm saying? When negotiations, when it comes on.
Yeah, because you have the position players facing off against the pitchers, and that's going to be a natural split right there. So it was nice to see that a lot of people, all of his teammates came out and defended Jacob deGrom after someone made a mention about him. And no one really came out to defend Garrett Cole, when Donaldson made his accusations.
We did
in that tweet. So
yeah, we did have a question from somebody, a Met fan. Do you trust the Mets? And it is interesting that they are a really good team right now. I think defensively, you got Lindor in the middle, all that stuff like that. But is it sustainable when you sit there and look at the fact that they are kind of by far and away scored the least amount of runs in Major League Baseball? Because I think the first thing you look at when you look at the standings and you look at Major League standings, I can flip it over here, and the first thing you look at is run differential. And the Mets run differential is, let's double check with the Mets. The run differential is only plus 11. While you look at the Cubs, who are plus 25, you look at the Giants, who are plus 70, the Padres, who are plus 75, the Dodgers, who are plus 83, the White Sox have a huge one too, plus 85. Like, when you look at that, is it, that means they're winning games by this much. Can they continue to do that in that National League East and kind of hold these other teams off?
Well, they're starting to get their offensive players back, and Lindor's turned it up a notch, which is what we've been waiting for. That's just a sign of how good their pitching is, really, when you think about it.
Stroman's been great too.
Stroman's been great. And I'll tell you what, I was impressed that they went into San Diego and split. I didn't, I was more leaning toward them getting swept 4 games or losing 3 out of 4 because I knew deGrom was going one of the games. To get a split out of that in San Diego. And Lindor looks good in San Diego. And if Lindor turns it on and becomes the player it can be, the Mets are going to have the 2 best baseball players in New York between deGrom and Lindor. Who's going to touch Lindor on the Yankees?
And Judge.
Yeah,
Judge. That's funny.
And the polar bear looks like he's hitting the ball. So they're coming around. So I can see their run differential start to go up as players start coming back for them.
Interesting battle here between the Red Sox and Rays here, because the Rays we kind of expected to be good. They're always pretty good. The Red Sox are in that plus 54 category. This is where you look at the AL East and you say to yourself, the Yankees, like, again, in the past when they've made their runs, it's been, hey, you know what? It got warmer outside, and the home run ball started coming. And I was listening to WFAN, and when the Yankees lose or the Knicks lose, it's always interesting to listen to WFAN in New York, and they're talking about should Boone get fired? Should this guy get fired? Yankee fans, this is Cashman's team. This is his development. This is him with the short right field porch with a bunch of right-handed hitters. This is his creation. So, James, I'll let you go ahead and he is the main guy who makes all the calls. It's not even Boone. I mean, Boone is not making all these calls.
I mean, you just go back to the reason why Parcells left the Patriots when Robert Kraft took over. The whole grocery list thing. I don't want to shop with someone else's grocery list. I want to put together my own grocery list and build a team. And, this is what Cashman wanted.
Yep.
He wanted to become that general manager who put the lineups out, kind of like what Theo did in Chicago. I think Theo had a lot more input, telling Madden what to do. And I think that's what led to one of their splits, with what was going on there. But yeah, I mean, the Red Sox did not have a good 2019 season coming off the World Series. They weren't as bad as they were last year. But we don't really take into account how much of an impact the Major League Baseball season was last year, not having fans there.
Yeah.
Where players' hearts just not into it. You got to spring training, you're all psyched up, then spring training is canceled. Then you had spring training part 2 finally. Then you're going to empty ballparks. And
players all across sports, I think, have appreciation for fans now. Now playing with those empty stadiums last year, James.
Yes, exactly. And you started to see it during the NFL playoffs when fans were getting back into the stadiums, whether it was Kansas City or Green Bay, you just felt a different energy. We talked about it enough last week, how great MSG sounded once fans started getting in there, and then when they had the full house. If you've watched any of the Islander games, the Islanders have had a full, the barn's been full the last 2 games there. Boston had full attendance in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And you just saw a different level of play from Boston, but they played much better this round than they did the first round, as more fans were coming into it. So yeah, you don't know what impact that had on the Red Sox last year. And then, also all the shit that happened before the season started. You trade Mookie Wilson right before camp. You lose your manager right before camp. You make the bench coach the manager, and he'd been a long time bench coach, and he just didn't connect with the players. So I think it was just a season of I think it was, the Sox were one of those teams that just checked out last year. And I know they're getting paid a lot of money, and you don't want to hear that. But this is definitely a different team when you watch this team this year. This is not the team you saw last year. And they brought in, the Verdugo stepping up, and that's Kansas City trade seems to be even out for both teams right now. So, you go from there on that. But yeah, the Yankees just seem lifeless. I mean, the Yankees seem like they're not playing in front of any fans. With the way they're swinging the bats, and they're too right-handed.
They're way too right-handed.
How do you build
a team? How do you build a team that's that right-handed in Yankee Stadium?
Yeah, and Tampa and Boston, their bullpens are predominantly right-handed. Probably for the reason because the Yankees are so right-handed offensively.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But I think the Yankee. I mean, not that there was any way to make it work, but if a couple players aren't on that team, Schwarber was the perfect fit for that team as a DH.
Yeah, exactly.
And that stadium.
I would say also this is the only saving grace is that maybe they're if you want to lower the expectations like the old Saturday Night Live skit for the Yankees, they are 2.5 out of the wild card. So I mean that's how 6.5 out of first place.
Yeah, I mean I'm not saying they have to sell at the trade deadline. This isn't 2016 for them.
Yeah.
You just don't want to see like, say what you want about the missed opportunities in 2017. They still had to score runs. They didn't score runs, against the Astros. So I don't, their offense could have scored runs and it didn't. So, that's stop crying about 2017. You lost to the Red Sox in the 2018 playoffs, fair and square.
Everybody cheats to beat the Yankees, right? But when it comes to when the Yankees cheat, we ignore those championships. We just say, oh, those are legit championships. Yankee fans, right?
Yeah, that's 2019.
Yeah.